In a lifetime of listening to stories about innocent people wrongly prosecuted, I have never heard anything like what happened to Trevor Milton. You've got to watch this. You often hear the phrase miscarriage of justice, and we had this pretty amazing dinner last night where you explained exactly what happened to you. And the details are so shocking that I just want to start this by saying I'm really excited for people to hear exactly what happened to you, because I think those of us who felt that, this was the most just country in the world will have our preconceptions adjusted. You had a vehicle company. Tell us about the company. What did it do? You started it? What was the product? How did it work?
So Nikola was a company I built out of my basement. And a quick pause there just for everybody. By the way, Tucker's dinners are awesome.
I don't make them.
We came here, last night, had dinner with him first. It was such an incredible time to just talk about anything. So thanks for having us for dinner.
Great. I loved it.
And it allowed me to really get to know you too. So thanks. That was really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Nikola was a company I built out of my basement. So a true entrepreneur story. Literally right out of my basement in my house in Salt Lake City is where we started it. We grew it to the point where we were bursting at our seams inside of in our basement. And our whole goal was to build a clean emission truck. And it kind of morphed through the time. Like we started off as like a natural gas truck, and then we moved it to a hydrogen zero emission truck.
When you say truck, like pickup truck?
A big semi truck.
Okay, so the trucks that haul goods across the country.
Yeah, exactly. The ones you see on the freeways hauling 80,000 pounds. That was because it was around the third largest polluting industry in America. So the whole point was to reduce, the amount of the emissions and noise. And it was also the fact that electric powertrains are so efficient. I just loved them. I grew up on locomotives. My dad managed the railroad when I was a kid. So I grew up on locomotives, and the whole idea was to build a locomotive semi-truck. That was like my...
People may not know that many locomotives are electric.
They all are. Their entire powertrain's electric. They have a diesel generator that powers the electric motors, but you for the torque and the power, you have to have the electric motors.
We did a video last summer on the Cybertruck, and we hauled 8,000 pounds of dirt in the thing. And if you ever hauled anything in a truck, you can feel the engine strain when you're in an electric vehicle.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty opposed to electric vehicles generally, but for hauling stuff, it's beyond. The difference is just crazy.
One of the best parts is the ability to recapture all the energy. That's what I love the most about electric powertrains, is that like when you go to hit your brakes, rather than wearing brake pads down, what happens is those motors go into reverse, and they're able to absorb all that. They become a generator, and they start outputting. So say like the Cybertruck's like 400. I don't know if it's a 400 or 800 volt platform. I think it's 400 volt. But anyways, what happens is instead of using 400 volts, now you're charging 400 volts into your batteries. And so with big semi trucks, it makes a huge difference. So I live part of my life up in kind of the Utah, Wyoming area. And there's a Parley's Pass that goes from Park City down to Salt Lake.
Yeah.
Imagine if you have an 80,000 pound load. You're charging your battery all the way from the top of Park City all the way to the bottom. You're going to have a battery that's 20-30% charged more when you get to the bottom.
Just from braking.
Just from actually regeneration. So you're not even braking. You never use your brakes. And that's what's so cool about electric vehicle. Like really what it is the instant torque and the ability to recover all the lost energy. And that's just something you can't get anywhere else except for that.
I strongly agree.
It's
just
cool.
as an engineering matter, it's incredible. So you build this company, it starts electric, and then you go into hydrogen. Can you give us the non-complicated 1-minute explanation of what that means? What's a hydrogen motor?
A hydrogen is the most abundant element in the atmosphere. It's the only energy that can never be depleted. So the reason why I love hydrogen is that it comes from water. You can split. It comes from water. You're able to split it. It's also in the atmosphere.
H2O,
hydrogen, exactly 2 parts exactly. So how this works is the hydrogen is stored in, you separate it from the water, you store it. And the hydrogen is then passed through a membrane, which creates electricity. That electricity is captured through these membranes and delivered to the batteries of the vehicle. Now, there's inefficiencies with hydrogen, but there's also inefficiencies with electricity on the grid. So if you produce hydrogen on site, it can be as efficient or better efficiency than electricity itself. So when a lot of people plug in their cars, they're like, oh my, they talk about the efficiency of an electric vehicle like 97% or 92%. Well, that's great, but it's actually not really that. Let's talk about where was that power generated from?
Exactly.
It was generated
and how did it get there?
From a solar farm, okay, of 22% efficiency or less. And then transmission lines that take you 800 miles to your home through transformers. You've lost another 20, 30% of efficiency over all that entire lifeline if you factor in how much loss actually happens on a grid, and through transformers into your home and all this stuff. And so realistically, like if you look at that, the numbers can actually be worse than hydrogen, but people don't want to believe it. They're like, oh, my car's 92% or 97% efficient.
Once the electricity reaches your vehicle.
Once it reaches your vehicle.
Right.
So with hydrogen, the point is that you're producing hydrogen so difficult to say transport. It's not extremely difficult, but it's harder than electricity to transport. So what you do is you produce it on site, so you're saving all that efficiency, say from like hydroelectricity or whatever, right? But the whole point is that hydrogen can be used over and over and over again, and you don't have to mine any mountains. You don't have to. There's no other elements other than just water and electricity. That's it to produce hydrogen. So there's good and bad about hydrogen. It does not fix every application. And I've always told people, like, I think that like electric vehicles on a car level make much more sense, but hydrogen on a heavy duty level makes more sense. So hydrogen for semi trucks, for trains, for the maritime, the marine industry, the maritime industry, for ships, for aviation. That's where hydrogen makes all this.
How expensive is it?
It's not that expensive, actually. To produce it, we call it, you move the decimals. So let's say that your cost of energy is 2 cents a kilowatt hour. Okay, so let's just say or 2 cents a kilowatt. Your hydrogen is $2 a kilogram. So it's actually really cheap. And a kilogram is actually about a kilogram on a is pretty equivalent to, if you were to think about like a gallon of diesel. It's very similar, kind of on energy level, like how far a vehicle can go. That's kind of how there's a lot of factors into that. So it's not an exact science, but the point is that to make it easy, is a kilogram of hydrogen is going to be very similar to, like, you're going to compare it to a gallon of diesel.
So just a couple dumb questions. I have a hydrogen powered truck. How do I fill it up?
You can't right now, and that's a problem. So that's what Nikola was all about, was the chicken and the egg. The idea around Nikola, the reason why it went parabolic, was it was not just building hydrogen trucks, it was actually supplying the egg too. So it's like a cell phone. Your cell phone is worthless without the tower. So there, everyone's like, oh, hydrogen, there's no infrastructure. It's stupid. It's going to cost $100 billion to develop infrastructure. Well, they've spent, hundreds of billions on cell phone towers. Who cares? Infrastructure is like, it usually sticks around for 50 to 100 years.
Spent over $1 trillion on the Iraq War.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Got a lot out of it.
We didn't even get our airplanes back. They left them over there.
Yeah. It's now controlled by Iran. So yeah, big win. Okay. So you were in the business, not just of building the trucks, but of building the infrastructure to fuel the trucks?
It was. That was the whole reason of Nikola. It was really an energy play. The point was to displace the oil companies. That was my goal, and my dream was to either partner with or displace the oil companies entirely. And I have no problem with diesel. I think it's one of the greatest things America's ever found was diesel. It powers everything. It powers. You have diesel. Literally, you have like you have this. It touches your life probably 100 times a day. I mean, even a piece of plastic has petroleum in it, right? There's everything about diesel it's the most efficient way of moving American goods for over 100 years. It's just the greatest thing America's ever seen. But there's also ways you can have both in this world. And that was my goal was to become essentially as powerful or as big as like an oil company, but not doing oil, but doing hydrogen. And that was my goal. That was really the idea, is to eliminate the emissions on the road, become an energy conglomerate, and provide energy that's a residual income every month in your life. And that was what
is hydrogen produced at plants?
They
I want to produce hydrogen to power a fleet of trucks. Where do I produce it?
You would have a plant that you would build, and it would be done. There's two different ways of doing it: through a proton exchange membrane, they call them PEMs, or through electrolysis. So those are the two main methods. And even like Chevron right now produces hydrogen, but it's like $20-something a kilogram. Well, that equates to $20 a gallon of diesel. So you'll never compete. The point of hydrogen is what you have to do is build it on site. So very similar to data centers. We were talking about data centers last night. The amount of energy that they're consuming for AI. And so what do? They go build them right next to They build them next to the nuclear plant now.
No, of course.
So it's the same thing with hydrogen. The only, like we had the nuclear plant in Arizona was quoting us energy under 2 cents a kilowatt hour at the time. So that they can make it for $0.0125. A nuclear plant can. So what you're talking about if it's 2 cents a kilowatt hour, you're talking about, 2 cents a kilowatt, you're essentially producing hydrogen at about, you're producing hydrogen about $2 a kilogram. And at that point, you're half the cost of diesel. It's game over. The entire world everything would go hydrogen. And we were on the verge of that. And then that's when the forces that be came after us and decided to completely destroy us. It was the most wild event.
So it takes a lot of energy to produce hydrogen.
Ton. But it's okay because we have more energy than we know what to do with. Realistically, we do. Because, for instance, the grid can only handle so much energy. And so if you look at California will actually pay you to take their energy at parts of the day because they have too much of it from solar. Solar's fantastic in the West Coast and even in some other areas. But the problem is the sun comes out, it loads the whole grid full of energy, and then they have to start dumping it. So one great thing about hydrogen is that you can buffer the grid. You can say, send anything you want to the grid. Doesn't matter because any excess, we can produce hydrogen. And you can suck out hundreds of megawatts of energy from the grid, producing hydrogen and storing it. And then you can store it liquid as well. And then you can transport it from there. And that was the whole idea of hydrogen. It's not a one size fits all, but it's a solution to the major problems we have in America.
How dangerous is it to transport hydrogen?
Not dangerous at all to transport it. Most of the time, they'll transport it in liquid form. And that's the best way to transport it. And it's very inexpensive to liquefy. It's about 50 cents a kilogram. So if you're $2 a kilogram and you can liquefy it for 50 cents, now you're $2.50 a kilogram. And you can move that anywhere in America at 8 to 16,000 kilograms at a time, just like an oil tanker is.
And it's as not more dangerous than an oil tanker.
It's more, I would say it's more dangerous, but it's nothing different than like transporting helium or any other gas, like natural gas. Like you see, no one knows that natural gas is being transported everywhere all the time, and it's extremely volatile. Hydrogen, the reason why hydrogen can be a little bit dangerous is that the molecule is so tiny. It's the smallest molecule out there. So the fittings have to be designed perfectly. The lines have to be inspected all the time. But one great thing about hydrogen is how light it is. So if you were to have an accident or something like that, it just goes straight into the atmosphere because of how light it is. Unlike propane where it settles.
Yes.
The real dangerous stuff is propane. That's like because it settles below the air and any spark will just, I mean, everyone doesn't even know that. I mean, they have a propane tank next to almost everyone's house in a lot of rural areas in America.
Oh, yeah.
That thing would
we do right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had 8 of them at my cabin. So you have like eight 1,000 gallon propane tanks buried. Imagine if that went off, there would be nothing left of like an acre lot or 5 acre lot.
I have a lot of propane tanks and I never think about it at all.
So hydrogen's way safer than propane.
In fact, I always take my matches and light them off the propane tanks.
Do you?
No, just kidding.
Jeez.
No, but your point is a good one. I mean, people who live, far from anyone in rural America has a lot of propane around. A lot.
Anything new scares people until they realize it's not dangerous. Hydrogen.
So it's not directly connected to the hydrogen bomb. It's not the same as the hydrogen bomb.
No, philosophy is similar, but like a little bit different. Yeah.
Just kidding. Okay, so you build this company. How does it do?
It does fantastic for a long time. We took this thing. We developed our first prototype. Was called the Nikola 1. It was our very first prototype. Semi-truck. We unveiled it in 2019.
Where'd you build it?
In Salt Lake City.
Wow.
At our facility. Yeah, it's really cool.
You built the truck at the facility?
We did, at the facility. We have hundreds of photos of us assembling, and it was all fabricated by our teams and people we hired to help us. So the frame was ours. The suspension was designed by our team and outside engineering partners, but we own the IP on or co-owned. It was just like, it was really cool. So like you think about a Peterbilt or a Kenworth truck, right?
Yeah.
That all, it's taken them decades to design their trucks. We had an initial design of our truck that we built. So all the frame was ours, the suspension, the cab, everything. It was not a pile of crap, but it was a first prototype. It was rugged. I mean,
so you didn't just take a Peterbilt and throw your logo on it?
No. It was entirely from ground up our truck. It was beautiful, but it was like, it wasn't ready for production. It was a prototype. And all the parts, this is where the world didn't know, like the whole, and I'm going to tell you a little later about like how the short sellers came after us and the government did. But what they don't know is that truck was actually real and it functioned. And they sold this huge lie that this truck was fake, but it was really real. So let's go through that. Like the suspension was real. The air ride system was real. The entire frame system was real. The cab was real. The power steering was real. The batteries were real. We had the first 800-volt battery on a semi truck that I knew of in the world, and we tested it. We tested the battery, 800 volts. It worked. Everything was fine. So the e-axles were real. The case was real. We had the rotors and stators and gears. Everything was real. All this stuff was real in this truck, and what's crazy is when, later on we ended up doing a commercial and we're like, oh yeah, go ahead and use it for commercial. No problem. You see like the Chevy Camaro turning into Bumblebee on the Transformers. It's like, you don't think that GM's defrauding everyone because the Camaro becomes Bumblebee. You're like, it's a commercial or it's a movie. Who cares? This is what it's used for. I was like, yeah, go ahead and use it. Who cares? So they used our truck in a commercial and they rolled it down a hill. All the parts worked on it, could have powered itself if we wanted to. We probably would have taken a month's worth of work to make sure it was safe enough maybe 2 months to make sure it was safe enough to drive all on its own. But the truck functioned. It was real. And this was the lie that destroyed my life. This was the moment that destroyed my life. Because later on, the short sellers sold it to the government that this truck was fake and it never worked. And that message was so sexy that this truck was rolling down the hill that no one cared about the facts. They cared about this headline: Nikola rolls a truck down a hill. And that's what ended up. Allowing these people, all these evil people, to destroy the company, destroy me, make hundreds of millions of dollars in profit, and the government to indict me was this big fat lie by the short sellers that the truck didn't function.
So last month, hackers gained access to a major data broker's files and leaked over 350,000 people's information. That information is now out there and it could wreck people's lives. Using ExpressVPN is a great way to make certain you don't fall victim to something like this. And schemes like this are accelerating. Obviously, they're all over the news. ExpressVPN is an app that hides your IP address and reroutes all of your online traffic through secure and encrypted servers. That means that data brokers can't watch what you're doing. They can't track your movements online. Hackers can't steal the information because all of it's secret. All of it's private, and your privacy returns to you where it belongs. ExpressVPN also includes a new feature called Identity Defender. It's completely free to new US customers. So if you're new to VPNs, data brokers probably already have your information. Identity Defender scours their files and requests removal of your data. And critically, it also alerts you whenever your personal information is used, like your social security number or your home address. Plus, it provides insurance if your identity is stolen. And that actually happens. It's a real thing. ExpressVPN takes just one click to use, super easy, and it works on up to 8 electronic devices at the same time, so your whole family can use it. You get an extra 4 months for free by using this show's link. So scan the QR code on the screen or go to expressvpn.com/Tucker and get 4 extra months of ExpressVPN, expressvpn.com/Tucker. The reason I wanted to talk to you, and the reason I think your story is amazing and not just another, I was unfairly prosecuted, which I think is a pretty common story in America's prisons, is because of the role of the short sellers. And I think this is one of the most extraordinary things I've ever heard, ever. And so I just want to ask you to explain it in a way that people can understand. So you've made 2 references to a short seller. What's a short seller?
So a short seller is a person or a fund that actively bets against you that your stock is going to collapse. So unlike a regular investor that buys shares and they hope that the stock goes up, short sellers buy shares and they force it down. So it's like it should be completely illegal. It should be.
Well, it has been for most of the last 100 years, from I think the Depression until right before the last financial crisis. There was something called the uptick rule, which prevented short sellers from selling when the stock was in decline. I think that's correct.
I don't know.
It's been heavily regulated. It's banned in a lot of countries. It's so clearly immoral and bad for a country and for markets that I don't exactly know why we have it, but we've had it since 2007. But anyway, but you're saying that a short seller, as distinct from an investor, makes money on failure.
Oh, and not just failure, but forcing failure. So an investor invests based, and then they hope it goes well. They go out and they hope it goes well. They hope it does. You say you invest in Tesla or somebody else, whatever. You're hoping that they come out and they deliver on their products, right? You hope that they do good and it goes up and you make money and everybody makes money. A short seller is different because they don't just hope it goes down; they force it down. And this is where it gets really crazy in the stories.
This is crazy.
It's never been told before. I've never gone through this.
Explain how a short seller, this disreputable, evil, should be illegal brand of anti-investment, how they're working with the U.S. government, the DOJ. Like, how could that be? How does that work? This
is where the Department of Justice has just gone so far off the rails, and it was covered up for a long time. No one knew about it. In my trial, this stuff got exposed, so it's actually available. It's not like someone doesn't have to take my word for it, but we can. It's easily available through the. Anyone can ask for a FOIA on it. Anyone can look at all the materials that was submitted in my trial. What was really crazy is that the short sellers were building a fake report on me and the company prior to us going public. And their entire goal was, okay, the SPAC is going to go crazy. We went public via SPAC. It's a special acquisition company. They knew it was going to go up. And what they wanted to do was then force it down. And that's where they make their money. So what they were doing is they were working with the Department of Justice. They were actually communicating with the Department of Justice prior to releasing the report, which to me is mind-boggling.
What is a short-selling report?
Short-selling report is normally a salacious and false report for the most part. So what they'll do is they'll mix in 5% truth and 95% lies to just scare the market. It's always some companies. Look, there are some bad ones, and like everything, a short seller has gotten it right on a few companies. But majority of what they attack is all complete bullcrap. It's just their interpretation to make a company look bad.
But a short selling report is like a magazine piece. It's like what we used to call a hit piece against a company.
Exactly.
Like, this company is bad, fraudulent for these reasons.
Yeah.
And they do research on you.
They do. And they pay an enormous amount of money to employees. So they get inside information that a lot of time is slanted because they promise the employees money. So
Wait, what?
Yeah.
So if I go to your employees and pay them for inside information on your company and then invest in the company, I go to prison because that's called inside trading.
Yes.
But if I go and pay your employees for bad information and bet against your company, that's legal?
It's still inside trading, but
yes, it is.
But the prosecutors looked the other way. We actually presented them.
Wait, is that really real?
It's real. So look, they actually
Martha Stewart went to prison.
Yes, this is why I get so angry is we presented the Department of Justice the evidence on Hindenburg's essentially insider trading.
Tell us what Hindenburg is.
Hindenburg was the short seller group that attacked us, that attacked Nikola and me, primarily me, but Nikola.
And it's run by
a guy named Nate Anderson, who is the head of Hindenburg Research, and his entire goal was to burn a company to the ground, take out an insurance policy, burn the company to the ground, call the cops on you, and then collect on the insurance policy.
So Nate Anderson, I just looked him up on the internet. I'd never heard of him. This is not my world, but there's like nothing on the guy at all. He was like 39 years old, no real track record as an investor. He was an ambulance driver in Israel for a while. Not clear he graduated from college. There's like no information on the guy. And all of a sudden, he winds up as this like major player in the American economy, running this short selling group called Hindenburg, which just disbanded recently.
Barely just disbanded completely.
Okay.
Yeah, ran away.
So Nate Anderson produces a report attacking you, a hit piece on you designed to drive your share price down because he's bet against your share price as a short seller.
Yeah, the weird part about this is so crazy. The short sellers, you like essentially commit this. Like, I'm going to try to explain this easy to the public, but this will just get your blood boiling. Without the Department of Justice involvement, the short would never work because your stock would they would just come out with some report and people would be like, whatever, that's stupid. Like, it's not true. The trucks are obviously real. It turned out that Nate Anderson was communicating directly with the Department of Justice prior to releasing the report, which means that what he was doing is he was telling the Department of Justice that there was this fraud that he's launching this investigation. He's going to launch it. And he wanted to make sure that they had it in their hands and they were ready to look at it the second it hit. So what he does, he stokes the fire, gets them all angry at you, sells this big fraud, pays
was DOJ looking at your company before?
They were because of Nate, because of what we found out was because of what Hindenburg was doing. So Hindenburg was feeding this.
So the Southern District of New York, the federal prosecutors in New York had, as far as you know, no intention of investigating or prosecuting you until they were approached by a short seller?
That is our knowledge, yes.
It's fucking crazy, man. This is the craziest thing. That's insane.
So the audience doesn't know this. The feds showed up.
Sorry. I'm shocked.
Yeah. It gets so much worse too.
But let me just say, just to put a finer point on this, in the United States, you're not supposed to be prosecuted so some guy can profit from your prosecution. Is that justice?
It's not our country anymore. We've lost it. Look, it is so, if people, this is going to be fun today because I get to tell you, tell us the entire thing, but what no one's ever heard. This is why I love coming on your platform because it's so big and we can really explain the truth. The FBI, so Hindenburg started investigating us and filling the FBI with all these lies.
But just to be clear, you don't believe the Department of Justice had any plans to screw with you, investigate, indict, bring you to trial, anything, until they were approached by this group of short sellers who was like, hey, you should look into this Trevor Milton.
From what I know, that is 100% accurate.
This is unbelievable.
So Nate gets the Department of Justice. Originally, he goes to the Eastern District. That was what we hear. He goes to it lands in the Eastern District of New York because he wanted New York. Because New York, New York, you're done. If you get indicted in New York, you're over. You get indicted in Arizona, Utah, you're going to get a fair jury. In New York, it's over. It's a guaranteed stamp, a conviction, 90+% conviction rate. And the ones that get off are low-level crimes they don't care about. So what happened was the Eastern District researched it. They sent the feds in Arizona out to our facility. They showed up at my chief engineer's home. Out of the blue, I get a call from my chief engineer, and he's like, Trevor, the FBI just showed up at my house. I'm like, for what? They said the truck was fake. And I'm like, well, the truck's not fake. So, that's weird. I'm like, did you take him down to the facility? Go show it to him. I don't care. Have him call us. Have him call our attorneys. And they asked, he's like, yeah, they questioned me for like 10 minutes. And they're like, hey, is the truck real? We know it's fake. And he's like, what are you talking about? It's real. Of course it's real. The truck's freaking real. It's at the facility. Why don't you come down? I'll show it to you. Feds wrapped up, essentially scared them. And then they went back and they're like, yeah, nothing's wrong. The trucks are real. So the feds originally looked at it and they said, nothing's wrong. So he didn't get the response he wanted. They went back. They essentially declined anything. They're like, yeah, the company's real. It's all like, I don't know what these guys are even saying that the company's fake. This bull crap. So then he moves from essentially the Eastern District to the Southern District. Then they go essentially to different prosecutors, people they have better connections with. And next thing you know, the Southern District opens up an investigation. So this is after the Eastern District already turned it down, looked at it and said, there's nothing wrong. So then the Southern District gets it and decides they want to take me down.
But this is all being shopped by a guy who's hoping to get rich from your failure.
Exactly. By the way, before we go.
Why is he not in jail?
It's the question that I think that's the question that should be answered. But it gets worse. It gets worse because
I just didn't know. I'm sorry to keep repeating myself. I just didn't know that this happened.
Yeah. And it gets even worse because of what he does and how involved he is in making sure that the Southern District creates an indictment. So his report is worthless without an indictment or an investigation by the Southern District. So then what happens is that he creates this big report and he shares it with the government. And then he launches his short. So he takes out a huge position that your stock's going to collapse. And according to the court, we have some information how much money he made. We don't have it all. We're going to get it through there's a big lawsuit going on right now and we'll find it all out. But we know that he made somewhere between $30 and $100 million off of this short.
Nate Anderson did.
Hindenburg. Nate Anderson. That's what we know. We know he's somewhere between 30 and 100 million is what he made on this short from creating this fake report, getting the Department of Justice involved. And then when he launched it, what happens is then the next, literally that day or the next day or whatever it was, within 48 hours, the Department of Justice sends all their subpoenas to everybody, like our entire company, us, our attorneys, me, everyone, like scaring the shit out of everybody. And as a publicly traded company, you have to disclose it. So what happens when you disclose an investigation by the Department of Justice? Your stock does what?
And Nate Anderson and Hindenburg get rich.
It's a guaranteed, absolute guaranteed profit because without the Department of Justice, he makes no money. With them, he makes potentially hundreds of millions of dollars.
So what does it mean to be safe in your own home? For a long time, that meant good locks and maybe an alarm system. That was enough, but they're not enough. And you know that because the news is filled with stories of people who thought they were protected and fell victim anyway. Simply Safe can help prevent you from becoming the next victim. Instead of just responding after somebody comes into your home, an intruder enters, Simply Safe can stop them from ever getting in the first place. It's proactive. It doesn't just react. It stops the problem before it starts. Simply Safe's cameras and live monitoring agents detect suspicious activity, and if somebody is lurking around your house, agents engage in real time. They activate spotlights. They can call the cops to get the intruder away from your house and prevent him from coming in. Not all security systems do that. The difference is enormous. That's why our team, along with 4 million other people in this country, trust Simply Safe. Monitoring plans start for about $1 a day. They include a 60-day money-back guarantee. Visit simplysafe.com/Tucker to claim 50% off a new system with professional monitoring, and your first month is free. That's simplysafe.com/Tucker. There is no safe like Simply Safe.
Did you know that this could happen?
No, I didn't even know it was happening, dude. I didn't know until way, way, way late, like almost probably 2 or 3 years later that who was all involved in it. Like it took the subpoena power and everything else of when I got indicted to finally get in there and find all this out. And by then it was like too late to do anything about it.
The company's gone.
Company now is destroyed and the Department of Justice at fault. $34 billion destroyed by the Department of Justice.
So Nate Anderson could make $100 million.
And the other people he's involved with made who knows how much money. So there's funds in Canada that were involved in this, and we still don't know who they all were. That made massive. So what he did is he went out and told them too. So the insider trading was prolific. Like you're not allowed to go tell people something that you have insider knowledge on and get them to trade on it. He did this, and this is why he shut his entire. This is why I believe it's a belief. This is why I believe he shut his entire firm down and ran.
Where is he now?
No idea. I mean, we're in the middle of a lawsuit, but like no idea.
So short sellers, as far as I know, don't have to disclose, or he does not specifically have to disclose who his investors are. Mm-mm. So there's a syndicate, presumably, because that's typically the way. I don't know this, but I'm just guessing that there's a syndicate behind him. He has investors.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
And they're all profiting from this with insider information. And you know for a fact they paid members of your
So the government's chief witness was a guy who made $600,000 on the short, paid by Hindenburg, by the way, paid by Nate Anderson. So the government's chief witness in my trial, my federal trial, was on the stand, made $600,000 by making sure I got convicted, and is set to make millions off of the so-called fraudulent whistleblower group. This is the government's chief witness. I mean, imagine like the guy on the stand.
Who was he?
This guy named Paul Lackey.
But what was his role? Did he?
And it's public because it was in the trial. That's why.
Did he work for the company?
No, he had been to our facility one time in his life. He worked on the batteries. He was an outside guy. He worked on the batteries. He'd been to our facility one time in his life, and he was the government's chief witness.
And he was paid by Hindenburg?
$600,000 by Hindenburg. He's admitted that on the stand. And and he stood to make millions in the whistleblower groups. Who knows how much money he made from the fake fraudulent whistleblower group?
I'm just going to ask one more time. Are you positive that Hindenburg paid your employees for information about your company?
They paid contractors and outside and other people for it. Yes, that were inside of our company that had come in. Yes, 100% for sure.
And they use that information to trade.
Yes, like if someone wants to see, go look at the trial transcript. It's public. If you want to go see, go search for Paul Lackey. And he admits he made $600,000 from Hindenburg. Hindenburg paid him $600,000 a portion of how much he would make if he agreed to come in and create a story. And they did this, and they did it to other people. There was other people that he promised money to too. There's probably a half a dozen people that, I don't know the exact number, we're going to find out in the lawsuit, but there was somewhere around a half a dozen people that Nate Anderson paid for information and gave them a portion of all the profits. And these are the guys that are part of this fake whistleblower group and that were part of testifying against me at trial.
So justice in the United States and all civilized countries is administered by the state on behalf of the population, the whole population. So when the state indicts somebody, the state makes the claim that indicting this person, convicting and imprisoning this person protects the public. That's the point, right? That's the point of justice, is to protect the society.
Yep.
The idea that a private investor could be driving a prosecution in order to benefit from it makes a mockery of the idea of justice. It's not on behalf of the public or protecting the public. It's on behalf of a commercial interest. They're trying to put you in prison in order to help someone get rich.
If Pam Bondi looked into this right now, Nate would probably be in prison for 30 years. This is how corrupt, and not just him, there's other short sellers. And it scares me because like my
Bill
life.
Ackman was a big short seller. I mean, there are a bunch of there are a lot of prominent people who've done a lot of short sales and gone on television to talk down share prices in order to benefit from the decline in share prices. And I don't understand why none of those people is ever prosecuted. And now I'm starting to understand that the system seems captive to those people. So you didn't, as you just said, you didn't know why this was happening for a couple of years. In those couple of years, what did the government do to you?
Oh my gosh, man. So the government, it's really interesting. The government has what Americans don't know is the government has a playbook, and it's been developed by the CIA and other entities inside the government, and it's passed down into the Department of Justice. They have a very clear playbook of how to guarantee a conviction and destroy someone's life and break them. So it's like the profilers, but psychological profiling. And what they do is they figure out how to do it, and they have a very clear playbook, and it's taught and very disseminated within these groups to how to do it. The first thing you do is you separate the person from all their friends and colleagues. And that's the number one thing you have to do. You have to separate them. You have to turn everybody against each other.
Yes.
That's number one. So psychological warfare. So they come in and they threaten everybody differently individually. They separate them. They don't care about the truth. They do not give a crap about the truth. We actually showed them the truth about major things that they were going after me for. And once they realized that they were wrong, they just pivoted to something else that didn't matter to indict me on. So this is, I want to stop at this psychological warfare real quick. And I want to tell everyone in the audience right now, in my indictment, there was never, not one time, they could not find not $1 missing ever. Not $1 misappropriated ever. Not one filing incorrect ever. There was no crime. There was no fraud. There was nothing. What did they hate me for? They came after me and indicted me specifically because of my tweets, my speech, how I explained the business plan. We were a pre-revenue company going public pre-revenue. All of our filings disclosed that we were 2 to 4 years out on revenue. And so I would speak about the business plan in present tense because why? Because all of our filings, which is what the government requires you to do, explain that we are 2 to 4 years out. So I was like, hey, this is how we're doing this. Okay, well, I didn't realize that when you say this is how we're doing it, that somehow they could indict you because like, oh, well, you haven't done it yet. Well, yeah, but this is the process of what we're doing. Like I've explained that and they didn't care. They just indict you on it. They cut your words out. So it's speech. I want America to know why this is important because I've had a lot of people ask me like, Trevor, why did the government indict you? And, why did these guys take you down? And later I'll get into that. But the answer is the speech is what they indicted me for. The answer is even more scary. It was and we'll go into that later. It's the ability to prosecute speech is what the Biden administration wanted, was the ability to prosecute free speech. So I was the poster board for prosecuting free speech. But I'll get into that later and we'll actually really hit it hard. But what they do is they psychologically, what they do is they come in, they threaten everyone individually, and they split you up. And so what they did is they scared everybody. They threatened. They actually told we have an email from where they called Kirkland, which was the attorney group.
Kirkland & Ellis, the law firm.
The prosecutors called Kirkland, and Kirkland called the company because they want to keep these communications from ever getting private. This is how they do it. It's like a big sham. It's called, privileged communications. Normally it's good when you seek advice from your attorney, but the government uses it to circumvent the ability of disclosure. So what they did is they called Kirkland. Kirkland called the company and said, we need two executives to testify against Trevor or they're going to get indicted. So what they do is they just say, executives, you're going to indict you too if you don't do whatever we say. They don't care about the truth. They're just saying this is what we're going to want and demand, and you're going to do it. So who showed up? The two executives to testify against me. And this is the crazy part. And by the way, that's step one. Divide everybody, turn them against each other.
Do you believe, if I could ask you to pause, do you believe the Department of Justice had an inappropriate relationship with Kirkland and Ellis?
Personally, I do, but it's extremely inappropriate. But I think that they are very good at what they do and cover up their tracks. It's very hard to.
But you felt that Kirkland and Ellis was not straightforward.
Well, no, we found communications between Kirkland and Ellis and Nikola where they actually laid out 9 steps on how to frame me, and this came from the Department of Justice because it was my exact indictment. So. We know that the prosecutors had to have been talking to Kirkland and Ellis because they gave them literally the blueprint on what their indictment was going to be. And these idiots put it in writing. Some intern was actually writing it down. There was 9 steps on how they were going to frame me, step by step. They actually said, we're going to make up stories about Trevor, and this is what we need to say.
Were you being represented by that firm, by Kirkland?
I was at first, yeah. And then later I wasn't. So there's some really bad misconduct there that is but ultimately the hard part is it's almost impossible to get into privileged communications and sue people on privileged. It's really difficult. It's not much you can do about it.
How much did you pay Kirkland?
The company paid Kirkland over $100 million.
Okay. So I'm just trying to figure out who wins in this. So shareholders lost tens of billions of dollars. Your life was destroyed. You were convicted of a felony. And so the short seller won. And the law firm won.
Law firm. So my legal fees were over $80 million.
Personally?
And
$80 million?
$80 million. And you know why? It was because, remember how I talked about psychological warfare? The next thing the government does is say, you're going to turn them into an enemy, combative, and you're not going to share anything. So then what happened is I was not privy to any of my communications inside the company. I couldn't interview a single employee. I couldn't interview anyone in the company. I couldn't get documents from the company. They were obligated to turn
your company?
From my company. Because I left at this time, and they were obligated to turn this over contractually, but they just said, what are you going to do? Sue us? Go ahead. It'll take you 2 years.
Kirkland said that to you.
Well, that was, yes. And essentially Nikola, but through Kirkland, said, we're not sharing anything. Piss off. So then they got Kirkland to essentially turn the company against me. And
wait, can I, just to be clear on the fees here, because the fees are really substantial. Mm-hmm. And so they're an incentive, clearly. So you paid Kirkland $80 million?
I didn't pay Kirkland. I paid my attorneys, separate attorneys, $80 million.
Okay. And Kirkland made $100 million.
The company paid Kirkland around over $100 million.
$100 million.
So this is what they did, is what the law firms do. Kirkland, think about it. If Kirkland went into the Department of Justice and defended us and actually got this thing squashed, they might make $5 million. But if they create an indictment, now they create controversy. They get a bill at $2,000 to $3,000 an hour. They destroy the company. They create more problems. They defend every one of those fires. They create shareholder lawsuits. They defend those too. And then they defend the company against a company with the Department of Justice through the indictment. So if they create chaos, they make $100 million. If they prove innocence, they make $5 million. Do you see it now?
I do see it.
America.
I'm not even a math guy, Trevor, and I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's literally what happened. Over $100 million is what I've heard. And through the lawsuits of what I've heard through the discovery, around over $100 million to Kirkland and their attorneys.
I've known a lot of Kirkland attorneys. There's some nice ones, but mostly just greasy, disgusting people. Honestly.
I can tell you that law firms in New York are their single goal is to represent chaos, because chaos creates immense wealth.
Damn. This is dark.
Our country is screwed.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's a cliche for a reason, because it's pretty good advice, but sometimes it's not true. Cell phones are a glaring exception. You've got your cell phone, you've had it for years, you don't change. Sometimes your cell phone battery life fades, or maybe your processor can't keep up. But your phone is bound to run into trouble eventually, no matter what the problem is. And replacing it early is much better and often far cheaper than replacing it too late. Enter Pure Talk. This month, if you switch to a qualifying $35 plan, $35, Pure Talk will give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 completely free, literally free. Just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and you get to restart your phone life cycle without paying for a brand new device. So it's a scam-free deal, all on America's most dependable 5G network. It's like a cell phone that works as well as any other. It's just way cheaper, and they're not scamming you. So switching is a win for everybody. You save money on your cell phone bill. Pure Talk grows to hire more Americans to support more veterans, which it does. So go to puretalk.com/Tucker to get your free phone today. That's puretalk.com/Tucker to switch to our wireless company. It's America's wireless company. It's Pure Talk.
Like, I didn't realize how deep this was. Dude, look, I came from a farm town, man. I grew up in a small town called Kanab, Utah. Okay. My mom was dying when I was 8 years old of cancer. We lived in Vegas. My dad's like, I got to get out of here. My mom's like, I don't want to die in a city. Just don't. I want to get out of here. So we moved to a small town called Kanab, Utah. One of the best things for me. It was really tough. But I moved to this small town in Kanab. We were extremely poor. My dad, or my mom, essentially my mom was dying. Our insurance company dropped us, refused to pay any of her medical bills. My dad sold everything he owned in his life to pay for her medical bills, and then tried to figure out a way for her to have some sense of like happiness as she died. So we're in this small town in Kanab. I'm taking care of my mom. My dad's working in Las Vegas, 3 to 4 hours away, trying to find work, and we are broke beyond measure. Like, no food sometimes. I had no money, nothing. Like, I had to go out and work. I was working in the morning. I was delivering papers. I was, I'd go over to milk cows with some of my neighbors. I did whatever I could to make a few bucks, mowing lawns after school, whatever I could. I was also in wrestling. And so I'd have to get up early and go to wrestling practice. And sometimes I'd go to practice, and I wasn't very good. I just wasn't good. It was interesting because through Hindenburg and all the media there, they used this guy locally in Kanab about me. They were like, oh, what do you think about Trevor? He's like, oh, he's a loser. He lost every wrestling match he did. And he's like, he's a total loser. And it was really interesting.
Wait, can I just ask you, so Hindenburg went and interviewed your childhood friends?
They sent media to do it because they got media to. Hindenburg works with massive media groups. One of them was Bloomberg. The other one was CNBC.
Hindenburg works with Bloomberg and CNBC.
Yeah, they're tied. I mean, tied together, almost tied completely together.
What?
Yeah.
So the short seller has a formal relationship with the media?
Monster relationship. This is how they get the short. They guarantee the collapse of a company. And it's deep. Fucking deep.
How can a short seller use the media to destroy a company and then profit from it?
They're best friends, dude. What happens and how they get, like, I can't tell you the relationship of what happens behind the doors with these guys. All we know is there was an enormous amount of communication between Hindenburg, a guy named Bloomberg, Ben Foley, other guys, and also CNBC, where they created a salacious TV episode to hit during my jury deliberations. We'll talk about that later. Actually, yeah. We have a massive $1 billion lawsuit against CNBC and Hindenburg for this that just got the judge. We just cleared the motion to dismiss, and the judge is like, I can't. Wow. It's this deep. It goes so deep, dude. These guys are like straight up. It reminds me of a government entity, how deep the layers go. Like, these guys had so much control with so many groups, and they were working directly with the media.
Man. The story it's so much bigger than just you and your family. Like, this just says so much about how our financial system works in tandem with our justice system and our media establishment to make a few people rich while destroying so much, like the country itself.
It's really difficult because the audience has only heard, oh, Nikola rolled the truck down a hill. They don't know the truth. The truck was actually real, it functioned, no problem. We just didn't turn it on for that scene, and you could have easily. But here's the thing. What's important to know is like why I did certain things. This is what is important. So as going back to Kanab, so the media went and interviewed in conjunction with the short seller groups. went and interviewed this guy, and he's like, oh, Trevor's a loser. He lost every wrestling match. And it was interesting because later on, someone was like, you know, and this kid was like, oh yeah, he's a loser. He lost. This is why he probably stole from everyone. This is why he got indicted. Like, I tied it to my wrestling matches, right? Okay, cool.
Your high school wrestling?
My high school wrestling match. And so
they went pretty deep on you, huh?
Deep. It was just fine. Whatever.
They're interviewing your 9th grade classmates?
Actually, earlier than that, it was like it was like 7th and 8th grade. So, by the way, I'm like, this is kind of interesting because like this is one of the only areas that the short sellers got it right. I mean, it's kind of sad to say, but the answer is I did lose all my wrestling matches.
I'm sorry.
I lost every one. But they don't know the reason why. You know, sometimes it'd be 2 days that I hadn't eaten. You know, so we had no money. We were broke. We lost everything. My dad sold his welder to pay for his money to get to Vegas to go work. I had no money. And it would be 2 days, sometimes 3 days. I wouldn't eat. And I would maybe grab like a handful of cereal from a neighbor. And like, that was my food. And it was just a tough time. It wasn't like that for all of our life. It was just that time for a few years, really bad. And we lost everything. And like, I would go to wrestling matches and get my ass kicked. I mean, just bad, just get beat. But I didn't even have enough energy to even stand up. And so like, I was like, yeah, I like some friends asked me, like, is it true, Trevor? Cause you're a fighter. I can't believe you lose in wrestling. Cause I'm a pretty scrappy guy. And I'm like, no, it's true. I lost every one. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, but I hadn't eaten for 2 days, dude. I was skin and bone. I had nothing on me. I was so exhausted, tired. My mom was dying. I wasn't mentally there. And I was like, yeah, I lost it. They use it. Like what they do is they take these huge things and then they roll it into like this whole entire short sale report about how you're this big fraud. And that story is important because like my family means more to me than anything in life.
It just makes you not want to have a publicly traded company.
I love the public system. I hate the corruption that the government allows to exist around it. It allows people to actually be equal to other people. Like think about it. It allows an entrepreneur to go from zero to creating incredible wealth for their employees. The problem is the government figures out a way to destroy so many good people and profit the big people that are their friends, like the big banks and other people that are like making $1 billion off of everyone they touch. And
the law firms are making $100 million by encouraging chaos.
Each one, yeah. So it's important to know why I do things. Like, you know, one of the big lies that was set out was like, oh, Trevor left the company because he was, when Hindenburg hit, I decided to step away from the company. What the public doesn't know is they see the headlines, the media, the lies, but they don't know the truth. You know, why did I step away? What was the reason for that? I had told the board prior to when we went public, I told the board I was going to retire in December. So just a few months later, I was like, look, guys, I've taken this company as far as I can. It's up to you guys to take it the rest of the way. And my wife is incredibly sick. She was, and this interview is amazing because the documentary comes out today, finally. I've been working on this for almost a year. The documentary about Nikola and myself comes out, is now live and everyone can see it on YouTube.
What's it called?
Launched. So the handle's Trevor Milton, but the title of the documentary is Conviction or Conspiracy. And it's made to provoke the thought process. Was it a gigantic conspiracy or was it a true conviction? And part of the documentary is not favorable to me. I mean, come bash it, you got to show both sides. It's pretty fair. And we wanted to make sure it was fair, but we also wanted to make sure the truth was out there. And so I had told the board, I said, look, I'm going to step aside. And
your wife was sick.
My wife was actually dying at the time. I thought she wasn't going to make it. She was a doctor had put the wrong person's blood plasma into my wife during a procedure.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. She developed all kinds of diseases, and I don't like to go over them publicly because it's not fair to her, but like she developed a lot of diseases from what happened there, and also autoimmune diseases. She developed diabetes instantly. She went from a very healthy woman to a type 1 and type 1.5 diabetic to no longer being able to have children.
Oh God.
It was the worst thing you can imagine. And so she had taken we went to the emergency room. They gave her some type of vaccine that was there for, they thought that maybe they wanted to make sure it was like, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but they required it when we went to the ER, and that put her into seizures. It almost killed her, dude. It was awful. It was like so my wife was literally dying on her death, but couldn't get out of her bed. I was like bathing her. She couldn't get out of bed, couldn't walk. And then all of a sudden Hindenburg hits. And I'm like, I can't stay here and fight all this when I got my company. They all promised me everything would be fine, that they would fight the government and they would expose the truth and work with me. And they got me to sign these papers, these lying scumbags. And they used my wife's death, like on a verge of death, in order to get me to sign papers because they wanted power and greed and control.
Who's they? The law firm?
The executives in the law firm.
Yeah.
The law firm wanted it because they knew they couldn't control me, but they could control the other people because they were idiots. So they controlled them like little puppets, but they would have never gotten away with that with me. I would never allow it. So I decided to go help my wife. And then what does Hindenburg do? They go out and they celebrate. They're like, see, he's a criminal. He's a liar. He got thrown out of his company. He resigned because of the disgrace. Hindenburg's true. And that's where, so Hindenburg used the Department of Justice, the media, and my wife's sick illness in order to make sure that they profited $30 to $100 million or whatever.
Did you ever meet anyone from Hindenburg?
No. I saw him at trial. He came to my trial to rub it in my face. Like he'd sit in the.
Nate Anderson did?
Yeah, they would there was times when he came through the trial. I think it was just intimidation is what I believe.
But he never called you? You had no contact with him?
No, never. No. Never even wanted to know the truth. Never wanted to have any comment on anything. He used people, like one thing they did is they would use recordings from people and then and delete half of them. So Bloomberg did an interview with me, and they were like, he asked me, he's like, oh, was the truck, they're trying to catch me in like some kind of lie or fraud. They're like, oh, was the truck real? Did you guys just, push it down did you guys push it down the hill, or was it under its own power? And I said, no, the truck was real, but we didn't use its own power. We just used it in a commercial, and we let it roll down the hill for a cinematic effect. And I told the truth, right? So what does Bloomberg do? They come out with an article and they cut out my answer. And the headline is that Trevor rolled the truck down the hill, but they cut my answer out. So in the criminal trial, we got the judge to actually, one thing the judge did fair to me, one of the very few things, was he actually forced Bloomberg to turn over the entire recording. And sure enough, there it was, me explaining that oh no, we never, the truck wasn't on its own power. It was, we rolled it down the hill for cinematic effects and da-da-da-da-da. So literally Bloomberg deleted everything that showed I was innocent and hid it from the Department of Justice.
And Bloomberg was working with the short seller.
With Nate Anderson.
Do you think Bloomberg or CNBC took money from Nate Anderson?
I don't know. I don't think the company would be, who knows? I don't know. I do know that they're very close. They're like best friends. And Nate and some of these guys at Bloomberg, and they work on every one of his projects. They literally, every one of his short sales, you see the same guys disclosing, launching massive attacks against people. So it's a coordinated effect.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That Bloomberg allows that.
Unbelievable. We're actually suing CNBC right now because of the fact that, and Nate Anderson, but not, the hard part with Bloomberg is there's nothing, I can't sue him for deleting part of the recording and withholding it. There's no crime for lying about someone, unfortunately. It has to be a slander, and it has to be premeditated, and it has to be slander.
Right. You have to prove that they knew it was a lie.
We have it with CNBC easy, but we don't have it with Bloomberg. It's just, they just did really awful, disgusting
stuff. Well, the fact
stuff.
that media organizations, business networks are working with short sellers who profit from attacking people is just, so prima facie corrupt that you don't need to make a case beyond that. Just that fact alone is disgraceful.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it, as low an opinion as I have of the U.S. media, having spent a lifetime in it. You're still shocking me. My opinion's even lower. They are criminals. Okay, so back to the playbook that the U.S. government, in conjunction with the media and the short sellers, ran on you. The first part of that, you said, was to separate you from everyone you knew and loved and trusted, and they did that.
Yeah, and then they threaten the other guys. And then what they do from there is they get the company to, this is the third step is what they do is what they call control the environment. Control the environment is where they come in and they sanitize and filter every interview.
Where do you get your news? We'll tell you where we get ours in our private news briefing written by our guys in-house every single day. It is comprehensive, it's smart, it's honest, it's hilarious, it's the best. It's our private news briefing, and you can read it too. You can also unlock access to TCN's entire library of documentaries. You can listen to the show ad-free. All three are within your grasp. You just head to tuckercarlson.com to become a member of TCN today, and we hope that you will.
So these employees came to me afterwards and told me about this. This is how, after my trial, this is how I knew. So they threatened the employees. They said, you can't talk to Trevor, you'll get arrested, which is a lie. They could. They could talk to my attorneys, but the government threatened them if they did, they would be turned on. So Kirkland would threaten the employees and essentially divide and conquer, and then sit down and say, okay, they would interview an employee. And they say, all right, here's our 9 steps on how to frame Trevor. And they would go through it with the employee. And they would tell the employee what they wanted to hear. The employee's like, that's not accurate. And they're like, no, okay, well, we're just going to move on. It is accurate, but we're going to move on. And then but they wouldn't take notes of it. They wouldn't take notes of it. So when an employee would be like, oh no, Trevor told the chief legal counsel this, and the chief legal counsel signed off on this. And Kirkland was like, no, that's actually not how it happened, but it's okay. We're going to move on. And then they wouldn't write it down and they would just move on. So like, I had no idea an employee would actually tell this. Imagine this is Brady material, means information that shows you're innocent or exculpatory. Kirkland and the company would sanitize all of it. And then what they did is they would come up with a plan. They would come up with this report, and Kirkland came out with it, a whole report on me about how I was a fraud. They created this report fraudulently with all these partial employee comments where they sanitized everything out of it that showed I was innocent. And the government wanted it because they wanted to guarantee they would use that as part of their indictment and use it as part of the SEC coming after me. It's just crazy. The whole thing is planned
It's just
out.
bonkers.
So what kind of penalty were you facing at trial?
64 years is what the government asked.
Sorry.
64 years in prison.
64 years in prison, I think, is what the number was that they asked for.
How old were you
at
the time?
I was like 40.
Right. So you'd be 104 when you
I'd be
get out?
dead. Yeah. And
So you're facing life in prison.
life in prison for tweeting, by the way. Remember, this is important to know. Even one day in prison is the worst thing you can do to a human that's innocent, because it destroys their life, their freedom, their liberty, their family, their name. It's irreparable. Like, there's probably been 250,000 negative articles written about me because they just follow what the government says. So a great example is when the government came out, the U.S. attorney, Audrey Strauss, came out. And this is the crazy thing. They convict me for misunderstanding my tweet, right? Because they say it affected the market. So here's the crazy part. Audrey Strauss comes out. She stands in front of the whole world and she says, Trevor Milton is a liar, a fraud. This is where the rubber meets the pavement. He created a truck that was nothing more than a Ford truck with his own badge on it. It wasn't even real. It was fake, everything. That was categorically 100% false. So the market collapses on Nikola. So this market manipulation, they should indict her like they indicted me, because she actually caused massive market collapse when she had the resources at her hands to know that what she was saying was fake, but she didn't care. You know why? She can just like, oh, well, maybe we misrepresented it a little bit. No, they destroyed the company. The Department of Justice destroyed $34 billion in value, and she is responsible. The U.S. attorney came out, literally lied to the entire market. Okay, like, it's provable. The pickup, one of the other trucks we did, the pickup truck, was a Nikola truck, Nikola frame, Nikola e-axle, Nikola battery that we were working on, all of our own suspension designs, our own exterior panels, everything. All that design was ours. We used like a couple pieces from other OEMs, which every OEM in the world does. And she came out and said it literally just destroyed. When she came out and said that, the whole entire company at that point was known as a fraud.
It's one of the wildest interviews I've ever done. And I hope people understand the importance of it. Because what it shows is that there's a shocking level of coordination between major institutions in our society that are not supposed to be coordinating with each other. And that it's on behalf of what is, in my view, a criminal enterprise, short selling.
Here's where it gets really like, okay, so now we've had I agree. And now we've had all this fun talking about this. And here's the cherry on top. Here's the cherry on top. This just shows you how corrupt it is. So I didn't know this was going down. I did not know this was going down in the background. Okay. So after everything I'm telling you, I'm sitting there. I get a call from my attorney and he says, Trevor, I need you to answer me something honestly. And if you lie to me, I'll never represent you. You need to be 100% truthful to me right now. And I'm like, what? I've never lied to you. What are you talking about? Why would you even phrase it that way? What's going on, dude? What the hell else is going on that I don't know about? And he says, Trevor, are you a Russian asset?
I thought you were like a Mormon kid from Kanab, Utah.
I was a very innocent, naive Mormon kid from Kanab, Utah. I had met one Russian in my lifetime up to that point, and she was a mail lady. She was really nice.
Like at the post office?
Yeah, the post office. She worked for the post office. And
are you a Russian asset?
I had never been to Russia. I had never met a Russian in my life up to that point. No big deal. I mean, there's probably lots of great people. I mean, there's probably good and bad, just like every country.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm sorry for the language. Sorry for the language, everyone. I mean,
No, it's justified.
my jaw, I had no clue. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, did you hack Nate Anderson and the Department of Justice? What the fuck are you talking about? I don't even know how to hack, dude. I'm not a hacker. I'm not a Russian asset. Dude, I have to go to my engineers to ask them simple questions because that's how I learn. Like, I don't know how to do it. Like, I'm not like the expert when it comes to like, you get in super advanced chemical engineering. I'm not the expert. I have my engineers teach me. I don't know how to hack a government system. Good fuck, dude. So I was, that was the line of questioning right up front. And I said, why? And they said, there's a meeting before the judge. The Department of Justice is alleging that you're a Russian asset and that you've been hacking their systems and Nate Anderson. And they essentially want to take you to jail, like a pre-trial. Like they want to just throw me in prison for this. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. He's like, you've never emailed anyone ever to get information to like try to get into the system of Hindenburg or the United States government. No. You've never talked to anyone ever. No. You never asked someone to talk to someone else about it. No. Don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. So guess what happened? Nate Anderson, before trial, wanted to stoke the fear of the United States, get the government so mad at me that I have no ability to have a fair trial. Remember, they're profiting off of the failure of me every step of the way. So every month they would make another however many millions of dollars.
As your stock price declines.
As the stock price declines, negative news comes out. They had to make sure that I was convicted. Their entire life and identity was on this. From what we hear, and I have to say, this is only from what I know. I don't know all the details. I just know a lot of them. But from what I know, Nate Anderson reached out to his buddies in the Department of Justice, the prosecutors that he fed the report to, and told them that some Russian asset was trying to hack him and the government and get information, and that it was me. And the Department of Justice fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. They go to the judge, they tell the judge, and they set up a FBI sting. I've never told any, this is breaking here. An FBI sting in New York City. Supposedly I'm behind it. They're going to nab me and my Russian asset. They set it up. Nate Anderson or a lookalike. I heard it was a lookalike. It was a guy dressed up as Nate Anderson. Like that he was like in the FBI or like away or something. But they didn't want to risk his life. They got to protect him. Personal lookalike was there. This Russian person shows up, realizes it's not Nate or whatever, and fucking takes off. Hits an FBI vehicle, from what I hear. And by the way, this is all filmed. The FBI has it. These people have it. I don't have access to it. I've heard about it, and my attorneys have seen it. They fucking filmed this thing. They actually, because they were going to use it to go to the judge and throw me in prison.
If Nate Anderson is texting federal prosecutors, that right there should trigger a criminal investigation.
It should.
If that's true. I mean, I'm hearing this from you.
If it's true. I from what I know, it is like that's the thing. That's where I have all the evidence from what has been told to me, from my attorneys, from what I've seen. I was standing there one day when one of the prosecutors had to show me a message because for disclosure reasons, they literally had to show me their phone and say, hey, we just have to show you this message because it came into us. They had to show it to us. Like, so this is how I know that like this.
And what was who's the message from?
It was a message about me fleeing the country.
Who is it from?
One of their friends that was involved in this whole scheme, and I couldn't tell you who it was. I couldn't write their number down and research them. It was in the prosecutor's cell phone, their fucking cell phone. It's insane that like these guys have got.
So they meaning likely the short sellers were telling federal prosecutors that you were a flight risk in order to encourage them to put you in.
And a Russian asset. They wanted me in prison. They did not. They had to do it because they needed to make the judge think I was guilty. So remember, they had approached the judge sees all this shit. So the judge is thinking I'm the biggest scum on earth. You know how it is. Like the liberal, like the very far left in New York, what do they hate more than anything? Russian assets. It was Trump 101. Trump's a Russian asset. They use that to stoke the anger to the judge to fuck my life and my trial, knowing that they're going to make another 10, 20, $30 million on it.
That is just crazy.
I lost almost everything I have in my life because of this. I lost $80 million in attorney fees, billions of dollars in losses on my stock. Innocent investors lost billions of dollars out there potentially in different ways because of the decline of the stock value, because of the misconduct of the Department of Justice. And then they blamed it on me. And there's been 200,000 articles out there about how I was the cause of this. And now the truth gets out. This is why I'm so excited to finally think. And I use his name so sacredly because I'm a religious person. And I use this in the most sacred, most amazing way I ever can, in like respectful and reverent way. Like, thank my God for stepping in and allowing Donald Trump to see my story, because he issued me a full and unconditional pardon days before the government was going to seize every asset I ever owned. And that's all. If it was not for Donald Trump, I would be destroyed. And it was the same people that came after him, came after me. And when he saw this, he was like, this is a huge abomination. I can't stand for it. I don't care what the articles say. I don't care what the short seller narrative is. This is wrong, and I don't stand for it. And that's one thing I love about Donald Trump. He does not stand for something when he thinks it's wrong. He doesn't give a shit who is going to attack him. He knew there was going to be blowback. He didn't care. I don't care. I do what's right. And he is a man, like, he has got a spine. He's a real man. He's a true man. He's not a cow. He literally stood up to the media. They said, why'd you pardon Trevor Milton? And because they were trying to, make him look bad. And he said, he stood up there and said, they destroyed 5 years of this man's life. Trevor did nothing wrong. They're evil people.
Yes.
And that was his statement to the press, live, on the fly. And that was, if it wasn't for Donald Trump, I'd be screwed. They had filed to seize $690 million or something like that from me. They were days away from taking everything.
And then sending you to prison.
And then sending me to prison just weeks or months later. My goal in this life now has been to try to figure out a way to help Trump reform the criminal justice system, because there's 4 or 5 things I could do, and I can lay them out real quick, that will change the entire justice system. I think it's important to tell the world what it is. Yes. These would be like, because you can go into thousands of things. I only care about 4 or 5 things, because 80 to 90% of wrong prosecutions would go away instantaneously. Number 1 is the Department of Justice should never be allowed to talk to anyone unless it's a recorded call.
I totally agree.
That's number 1. They should never be allowed to talk to an attorney.
Cops have beat cops who are making $50,000 a year and risking their life every day in the worst places in the United States have to wear a chest camera.
Yeah.
But FBI agents don't?
No. So here's the problem.
That?
Here's the problem. They coerce and they lie and they destroy people and they destroy evidence. So the number 1 thing they should be is every call, every personal visit, everything should be on camera.
Certainly every interview.
Every interview as well.
May I ask you a dumb question? Are you allowed to whip out your iPhone and record the interview?
I believe you are. If you're being interviewed, that person is, but the person wouldn't know. The employee would never know that.
Yes.
They're never told. So, but they should force the Department of Justice to do it. So that way it's turned over in discovery. I mean, that should be part of their discovery obligations. Okay. Number 1 is every single interview or communication with any counsel, any attorney or anyone working on the case or instructed to work on the case. It should be a recorded call or video. Number 1. Number 2 is if you indict someone, the defendant should be able to choose the venue. This is a really important one. Because what they did is I had no connections to New York. We filed a motion.
You're not a native New Yorker?
No, I didn't own a property. I had passed through New York on a flight one time overseas.
I've been to Kennedy Airport once.
I had been interviewed one time early on about Nikola in New York, and it had nothing to do with the allegations the government claimed.
For a media interview.
Yeah, for a media interview. So if you look at my whole history, everything the government alleged happened in Arizona and Utah, not in New York. So we filed a motion with the judge and we said, Your Honor, this is the wrong venue. I'm guaranteed by the Constitution. It's actually one of the reasons why America exists, is because they used to drag the founding fathers across sometimes the ocean, sometimes into other cities and states, and they would prosecute them with people that hated them. There's one reason why our founding fathers created the venue clause. And that was for me was one of the most was very sacred.
May I ask, how did the case wind up in New York City? If you had no connection to New York City,
That's the whole scam.
Was the company chartered in New York City?
Well, no, they said, so the prosecutors claimed that it was because we were publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange that they could drag me to New York.
Okay.
So somehow the company's organization would bring my personal venue into underneath the company, which is crazy. That doesn't happen. Number two is we filed this motion with the judge and we said, Your Honor, Trevor doesn't have any connections to New York. This shouldn't even be here. It should be in Arizona and Utah. They would never try it in Arizona and Utah, ever.
Wait, because your stock was traded in New York.
Yeah, but here's the funny
It's actually
part, right?
traded on the internet.
It's so they say it passes through, it's traded through New York. But you know the funny thing is, we told the judge, we're like, Your Honor, even that argument's wrong. And he says, why is that? Why is that? It's a New York Stock Exchange. He says, Your Honor, the servers are in New Jersey.
Well, there is no New York Stock Exchange anymore. I mean, the whole thing is stupid. That there are a bunch of guys in coats with slips of paper trading stocks. No, it's taking place digitally.
So what that means is that if you took away the venue clause in the Constitution, then the rights that we've been given, the venue is one of the most powerful clauses ever given. And it was made to prevent people from dragging people into other venues where they could get destroyed. So here's the important thing though, real quick. The prosecutors claimed that because something passed through New York somehow digitally, that it allows them to prosecute me in New York. If that's the case, you might as well get rid of every district in America. It should only be Southern District, because that allows them to pull anyone they want from California, from Portland, from Texas, and charge them in New York just because the internet goes through New York or some kind of thing like that. That's the problem. Is it would destroy every venue in America.
So did you have to move to New York?
I did.
You moved to New York.
I had to move there during the entire time in trial. Like
how long was that? How long were you in New York?
I mean, we bought a house there for the whole trial. It was awful. It was terrible. It was for the trial, and we were there. The trial took. I mean, the pre-trial and trial was over a couple of years.
So you moved to New York for a couple of years?
I wasn't there the full time. I'd still go back and forth. But yeah, I was there for a little over a year. I mean, at least probably a year in and out all the time.
What did you think of the jury pool?
That was hard, and this is why the government tries people in New York. So the jury pool in my trial was, this is why they rubber stamp convictions in New York. This is how it works. In Utah and Arizona, the people actually feel like it's a very patriotic thing to serve on the jury, and they want to make sure that no innocent person goes to prison. This is why they wouldn't try me in Arizona or Utah. The prosecutors would have been laughed out of the courtroom and probably sanctioned by the judge for their conduct. But in New York, the judges cover for them. They can do whatever they want. There's never a prosecutor that's ever reprimanded for anything in New York, ever. Shit, in Utah, just barely, the Chief Justice in Utah called the SEC in, essentially told them that they had committed crimes, shut down the entire SEC division in Utah over this because the SEC lied to the judge one time. The prosecutors lied to the judge hundreds of times in my trial. The judge literally threw the entire criminal case out against a guy because the prosecutors misled the judge one time. They actually give a shit about the rule of law. In New York, they don't. So what do they do in New York? How does it work? They bring you in, and they have this huge jury pool. New York is the people in my jury pool that ended up through a process of attrition, which is guaranteed every time. Almost every one of them, none of them had, very few of them had any type of job. Most of them were on government subsidies and welfare.
Actually?
Yeah. The people that did have jobs, like there was one guy that came through that was a plumber, an electrician, and I was begging, I was like, please, like, stay on my jury.
They didn't have jobs? They're on welfare?
Some of them.
This
not all
is
of
the
them.
jury of your peers
My
you
jury.
were promised?
Yeah. So the one of the guys was like, was a small business guy. I'm like, oh, please, for the love, stay on my jury. And he's like, and the prosecutor's like, Your Honor, this trial could take up to 4 months. The business guy's like, I can't be away from my business for 4 months. I'll lose it. I'm sorry, I can't be here. So the guy who's actually run a company that's like would be a peer, one person left. So the other guys making, the other people, they're making $6, $8 an hour, $10 an hour, whatever, getting welfare checks, retired, don't even work anymore. They're like really old people. We had a couple of them that slept through the whole trial. They're so old they just slept. They weren't even awake. One of them was And then what we found, the crazy part is, so during this voir dire, they call it voir dire where they interview the jurors. There's this one juror, and this juror had, she was a younger African-American female, and most of my jury was other races. They were not white. Most of it was all, I think that might have only had one white person on our jury. I'll have to look, but it was almost all a different race, which is fine. But, you would think normally, but in this situation, it wasn't. So this juror had, and during questionnaires, we asked the juror, do you have social media? No, I don't. Do you use social media? No, I don't. Where do you get your news from? I get it from YouTube. Okay. All right, cool. Sounds good. Any prior convictions? No. Okay, cool. Whatever. So there was nothing on her. And we asked the judge if we could research these jurors to make sure that the jurors weren't lying. Judge was like, yeah, no problem. You can research. So the person said they had never had social media, never had. Do you have anything against rich people or white people that would affect your ability to be fair? No, Your Honor. Okay, so cool. We put her in a pool of like potentially just acceptable people because they didn't meet any qualifications to be disregarded or essentially thrown out. And so long story short is that we go into the trial. Most of my jury is,
and she's on the jury.
She's on the jury. I had one good juror, and it was a Hispanic lady, and she was awesome. She ultimately went along with the rest, but she was the only one that had any sense of soul in her, or heart in her, that was like, hey, this might be wrong, guys. She was a really great woman, and I think she was bulldozed by everybody. But I'll go through this. This African-American girl lied to the judge, lied to us. My trial happens, I get convicted, and she goes out and she starts speaking to the jury. Speaking to the media. We're like, what the fuck? And so she starts speaking to the media. She gets interviewed by the media, and the media asks her questions, and they were really weird. And we start researching her, and we find multiple social media accounts that she owned through investigative ways that she never disclosed to the judge or us. And right before my trial, guess what her New Year's resolution was?
What?
To abolish the billionaire class, end of quote.
That's unbelievable.
Her New Year's resolution was to abolish the class of the human that she was on the trial for. Imagine this. Imagine if there was a trial with a young Hispanic kid or a young black kid, and there was a white supremacist on the trial, and his New Year's resolution was to abolish the African American culture, abolish or class, or abolish the Hispanic class. Can you imagine how quick that fucking trial would be thrown out?
What, did she express any racial views?
Yeah, lots of stuff against white people, wealthy people. Everything was a class warfare against wealthy white people.
Like explicitly against whites.
Everyone except for Elon Musk, which was her hero. So she was like, implant my brain with your Neuralink, Elon. Like she was like she was an Elon lover.
Implant my brain with your Neuralink.
That's what she said. She actually tweeted that. Yeah, she tweeted it.
But she hates whites otherwise.
I think it's because he's South African or something. But like, the point is she absolutely was like, her whole thing was, and like,
she served on the jury and voted for your conviction.
Not only served, she was the head of she took full control of the jury. She even admitted it. So
why wasn't the conviction thrown out on the basis of
it even gets worse already. So one last thing I'll say. So when she went out and interviewed with the media, they're like, oh, why didn't you, like, what about this, and this? They asked her questions about something. She's like, well, we didn't want to have an alternate come in because we knew he'd be found innocent. She actually said that I would be found innocent. Why didn't you
flee the country? No, seriously.
I wanted to stand.
This is a joke. Everything about this is fake. There's no reference point in justice here at all, or truth. And I know it's your country and you love the country. I feel the same way. But like, if you're sitting before a jury of racists who hate you for being white and rich and say so and lie, you're going to do life in prison.
Life in prison. They asked for 64 years. And
so did you consider fleeing the country?
No, I never did. Mainly because like I grew up in a really small farm town. As I said, my dad was very patriotic, is still, but like, we know the problems in the government. We hope we can fix them. But the point is there's something very, very brave and very like patriotic and very like manly about standing up, knowing you're going to be assassinated and looking them in your eye and just saying, fuck you. That was my best thing I could do, is look at him and through the eyes. And I looked at the jury and I said, one day you're going to stand before God. And the hell you're going to pay, because they're going to realize that they like, so the one juror was like, oh, we didn't want an alternate because they were going to exclude someone. They're like, we didn't want an alternate because he would have been found innocent. She's like, I couldn't stay. So I just decided we needed to have this done by 5 p.m. so I could go home. So she like literally is just like, well, I have to be home by 5 p.m. so we're going to convict him. We're not even going to look at the jury the stuff. We're just going to, let's just go home. And she was bragging about convicting me, putting me in prison by 5 p.m. And it was her lifelong goal. And then she went and bragged about it to the media because she wanted a big payday. It was just sick, dude. It's sick. And there's something about like I feel like, God, like Christ, if you believe in God, allegedly, or what they believe is that he died on a cross. He didn't die because he didn't die on that cross because because he was forced to. He did it willingly. And it's the greatest sign of a man is to look at the people that are evil in their eye, why they hurt them or murder them, and look them in the eye and just say, you don't know. And one day you will, and it'll be pain. The pain will be deep. And I can promise you, like, if God does exist, when they meet their maker, the pain they caused me and the lies what they did to me through their hatred towards wealth and race and everything else and whatever other reason, they will have to pay a price greater than what I paid over my 5 years of hell. Because that's the only way you can truly atone for something, is you have to pay for what you did, and then God can forget about it. But their pain is going to be incredible. And I don't wish that on them, but the growth that's requires that. And so they will have to go through it. And that's why I'm so afraid of ever doing anything wrong to anyone. That's why I give so much away. That's why I gave 70% of my company away. The judge wouldn't let me talk about that at trial. So they could say that I was like, I was lying. I was defrauding defrauding shareholders because I like lied about something in a tweet when it was a misunderstanding. But like, they just didn't understand how I was explaining it. But if I was really trying to pump the stock and defraud people, wouldn't I have not given 70% of, I'm talking $10 billion plus away? Why would I keep such a small amount for me? Why wouldn't I keep it all? No, I gave it all away. But somehow I'm a fraud. It was that's America, Tucker. That's where we're at now. And this is the first time I've ever exposed it, and the first time I've ever come clean about like what really happened and what went down. And and I'm just really great. I'm really proud I can do it on your show.
How did your wife take this?
Not well.
Yeah, I bet.
She still struggles to this day because with her illnesses and sicknesses, stress is like the number one factor for diabetics and for autoimmune diseases. That's what it flares up the histamine reactions and everything.
Yes.
And her stress level, like there was days where I thought we were both going to probably just wake up, like God would just be kind to us and just let us like die in our sleep. Like I was like, that'd be the greatest way to go. I was like, that'd be wonderful to like just wake up and I'm in heaven with her. That'd be rad. Like my heart hurt so bad and tore so hard. I was like, I could never imagine hurting. Like I've come from a life of service. I lived in Brazil when I was a kid. I did a service mission in the favelas. I taught people English. I taught people about God for a period, for a period of time. I've given almost everything away to my employees. I gave everything away to other people. I never pass up you can ask anyone you ever meet that knows me. I'll never pass anyone up on the street unless it's like a dangerous position where I won't stop and help a person. It's who I was raised from the time I was a kid, as a true patriot, as a lover, like of just wanting to see people happy. I want to see when I meet my maker, I want him to say, Trevor, you stopped 23,000 times in your life to help my children, the people that I made. And they were never grateful for it, but I am. And that's what I wanted. I wanted that feel. I wanted to know when I met my maker that I was like, you know what? I never passed someone up that needed help. And that's why I was so grateful for President Trump. He was the first person. There was other people there that helped as well, but he was the first person that was publicly able to, that was able to willing to stand up and do what's right, regardless of the consequence. And thank my God for President Donald Trump, because I'd be in prison, everything would be ripped away, and my wife would probably be dead. And that's how evil these prosecutors are. And I hope they hear this, and I hope they understand the damage they do to people, because they have to meet their maker one day, and they can't excuse it of like, oh, it's just my job. God doesn't care if it was your job. Was it your job to throw, not comparing equals here, but was it your job to throw the Jews in the oven? He doesn't care if it's your job. He cares you cannot excuse your behavior on your job. And I'm telling you right now, dude, like I'm halfway through my life right now. And I don't think America has much more in the future. I think we got maybe 10 years left in us. Probably. So if I really think about it, I probably have 10 years left in my life, because I think we're going to end up in a world of hurt, and most of us are going to be affected negatively. And I look at it, I'm like, I'm pretty close to meeting my maker right now. And I'm really glad. I'm really proud. Like I can look at my maker in the eyes and I can say, I did nothing but love people and help them and give everything I could. And I never lied. I never defrauded. These guys, these short sellers and the prosecutors, they all just lied, and they just spread it, and they have their power. They have layers, like 9 layers, just deep everywhere. And they back it up because, oh, well, the media said this. Oh, well, Bloomberg said this. Oh, CNBC said this. And the thing I didn't tell you about, and I kind of missed it in that timeline, is that Hindenburg worked with a group called, within CNBC called American Greed. And they launched this massive...
American Greed's a show.
A show.
Yeah.
Massive, disgusting show about me. That was all lies. The entire thing was lies. They launched it during my jury deliberation to guarantee. So if you think about this,
Wait, are you sure that Nate Anderson and Hindenburg work with CNBC on that show?
100%. It's actually, it's in all the lawsuit proven to the judge. It just passed a motion to dismiss.
How could CNBC work with a short seller to defame or attack, in any case, a company the short seller was profiting from the decline of?
During my jury deliberations, knowing the jury members would go home, because they're all social media watchers. They all watch this shit. Every show that comes out, people watch. They're all bingers. Launched it, dude, think about it. During the jury deliberations, and it's 100% factual that they that Hindenburg was working with American Greed. It's part of the big lawsuit. It's $1 billion lawsuit against them.
I hope you put them under.
I hope they have to pay. I don't know if the court systems are honorable enough to make them pay, but I hope they do. It's bad. I mean, the best thing would be is the Department of Justice to actually open a full investigation on the prosecutors, the process, what happened, Hindenburg, what they did, who was paying them money, did they trade on this information, which we know, which we have high beliefs that they did. We know it. Well, I mean, obviously they traded on it. So if they did this, that would be the greatest. That would be the best thing that could happen to America, is for them to actually restore trust in the justice system, to realize, you know what, we're not going to stand for prosecutors fucking around with short seller people committing crimes. We're not going to stand for it. And if you are, you're gone, and you're prosecuted too, not just gone, but prosecuted. And that would be the best way to restore faith in the American system, because it's gone right now.
How did you find out you were getting a pardon?
I got a call on. So this is crazy. I was actually my world was over at this time. I had finally come to the conclusion. I had finally resigned mentally that it was done.
When was this?
Beginning of April.
It's like,
I think it was April, beginning of April. Was it March? Sorry. It was beginning of, I'm sorry. It was about the beginning of March.
I heard your
Thanks, baby. I appreciate it. She was like, March. I'm like, okay, March. Sorry.
Your wife has a very good memory for dates and names. I noticed that last night. Yes.
She remembers
I have
everything.
Like it's good.
And so sometime around the beginning of in March, I got a call on my phone, and it pulled up, and I screenshotted just the caller ID number, because it was like so interesting. It said Executive Office of the President of the United States, and I was like, I'm either getting trolled, like straight troll, like they're gonna impersonate him with AI. I'm getting full on set up here. But I was like, I got to answer this. So I answered it, and they're like, hey, this is Trevor Milton. I said, yeah. And this is the Executive Office of the President of the United States, so-and-so, and Mr. President, President Trump would like to speak with you. Do you have a minute? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And that'd be great. And I go on hold, and I'm on hold for probably like 3 minutes. And I'm like, this is really scary, because I truly thought it was like a full setup. And all of a sudden it was the president comes on the line. He says, is this Trevor? And I said, yeah. And he says, Trevor, how you doing today? And I said, not too great, Mr. President, but I'm alive still. And that's all you can do is just keep fighting. And he says, you're so true, Trevor. So true. And he says, well, you're going to have a better day after this. And I just wanted to tell you. And I said, yeah. And why? And I said, why is that? And he says, well, Trevor, I've heard your story. And what they did to you was evil and disgusting. It was wrong on every level. And I'm going to issue you a full and unconditional pardon. The highest pardon a president can give a human is a full and unconditional. And I'm going to issue you a pardon. You don't deserve what you've been through. I'm so sorry. And he says, you're clean. You're cleaner than a baby's bottom. And it was a very, very like, and I didn't know how to take it. I'm like, here I am. Like I'd finally given up, finally resigned mentally. It's 5 years. I was just like, I just didn't have anything left in me. I was just over. And that was when I got the call, and it was like, it was so incredible because I realized that sometimes in this life you don't get the help until you have nothing left to give. And it was at that moment, and he stepped in for what reason? I know the reason because it was wrong, but like most politicians don't have bravery to do the right thing. They always do the wrong thing. And then he says, I'll be in touch soon. And he says he's like, just want to let you know. He's like, I'll be in touch soon. So 2.5, 3 weeks go by.
So what did you do in the meantime? Did you tell your lawyers?
I told my parent, my dad, and I told my brothers and my sisters, and I told my lawyers. And I made sure that, like, I was like, listen, guys, this cannot get out. This is the highest level of secrecy. Do not mention this to anybody. And my attorneys actually were like, didn't know how to take it. They were like, are you, Trevor, they're like, do you have a piece of paper that's signed? And in that moment I realized, oh shit, I don't. Like, I'm like, no, I don't. Then they're like, then it didn't happen and it doesn't matter. And there's a million things that can go wrong from now until then, or if it even, like, you're not questioning you because we like you and we trust you, but this is a little, like, you got to understand it's very rare to get a pardon. And I said, I've never lied to you guys before, and I'm not lying to you now. I was like, my wife was here. She listened to the whole thing. And they're like, all right, well, we'll see. 2 to 3 weeks goes by and nothing. And I'm like terrified. I'm like, great. Someone got to him. Someone made him think I was the evil man that the press said, made him think what the short sellers believe. And next thing you know, I'm sitting there on an architecture.
And meanwhile, the government's looming over you to seize all your assets and put you in jail.
They did. I was a few days late on a filing because it was like it was an asset to seize all my assets. It was a filing to seize all my assets. They asked my judge to allow him to take $660 million from me when they couldn't prove a single dollar had ever been lost or anything, that like I had nothing wrong. So that's part of reform. When you'll talk about that, that's one of the things in reform needs to be the true, needs to be not what the government just says that you like, has to be true. Like, show me someone who invested on my comment when they made it and how much they lost. They couldn't find one person that ever did, ever. They searched every investor that ever invested in Nikola. They could never find one person that said they invested based on the comments that they took me to trial for. And what was the losses from that? None, zero. So it was $660 million, and we were a few days late on our filing. And and then all of a sudden I'm on a call with our architects and attorneys, and Chelsea, like all of a sudden I get a call, and it was a Florida number. And I was like, okay, I better take this. I usually don't answer calls that I don't know numbers from because I get so much spam, but it was a Florida number, and I thought, okay, maybe. And it comes over the line, Trevor? Yeah, Trevor, it's President Trump. How you doing? And I said, I'm doing okay, Mr. President. And he says, boy, are you going to be doing better today? He says, I wanted to let you know that I'm sitting in front of your pardon right now, and I'm about to sign it. But I wanted you on the phone while I signed it. And then he said something to me that was really the most powerful thing I've ever heard probably in my life. And he says, I'm doing something for you that they never did for me. And it was one of the most deep, it was like that no one can do for me, like except for him. I mean, he may be the only person that can ever do it for himself, but as a president, whatever those constitutional powers are. But essentially what he told me in that moment was, I almost broke down bawling in this, because it was like, out of everything, that's what I took more powerfully than anything, is that, Trevor, I'm giving you something that I've long wished I could have been given, and I can't. No one did it for me, but I'm doing it for you. And I almost busted down, because it was really like a religious moment for me. It was a moment of like where I felt like God was sometimes like, that's a moment where God's like, I didn't do anything, but I had to let the evil man of the world murder me and hang me on a cross and suffer for days beyond any human can ever comprehend. And I had to do it because you couldn't do it for me. And like, fuck, that was a moment that like I had never imagined the power of a man's words in my life ever hit me like that. And it was when Trump told me, I'm doing something for you that no one could do for me. And it was like, it hurt my heart. Like it hurt me to like think about like what he went through and what Trump's been through and like what they're doing to him, and no one could come in and do that for him. And I was like, this guy's a human beyond measure. The media loves to make him out to be a villain. He is so human, so fucking amazing. Like I straight up, I would die for him, dude. In 2 seconds, I'd take a bullet in 1 second for him. Like he's that good of a man. And like, it was so special. Dude, my wife was crying. Like I was crying. It was just like he did it. He called me. He wanted to make sure I heard his pen. He put the phone, and you could hear his pen up and down and up and down and up and down, up and down. Like he has, 20 peaks and valleys in his signature, and it's so beautiful. And he says, Trevor, everyone here loves you. You don't deserve this. I'm so sorry. And he says, go tell the whole world. You should be proud of this. Go tell the whole world. And I said, you're okay if I talk about it? Just, I expect you to. And I was like, what a man. Like, I think we forgot what men are. Like, I feel like society has dumbed men down to nothing, to almost no heroism anymore, no greatness, no spine, no character, no nothing. And I'm like, this is what our founding fathers were like. Like the guy is willing to give up his life, everything, and he's willing to save someone who means nothing to him. I meant nothing to Trump. I mean, other than the story, other than he was wrong. But like I wasn't a lifelong friend of his. He did this because it was wrong. What they did to me was wrong. And so he did this because he wanted to right a wrong. And that's as godlike as they make in this world. And I'm damn proud. I have that pardon on my desk, and I'm blowing it up, and I'm putting it on my wall in my hanger, and I'm going to blow it up to 30 feet high. And I'm going to wear it with a badge of honor for my entire life. And I'll go down and I'll go down and die for that dude. Doesn't matter. He deserves it. He's earned it.
I can't thank you enough for the interview. Thank you. Trevor Milton, congrats.
Thanks, Tucker.
So it turns out that YouTube is suppressing this show. On one level, that's not surprising. That's what they do. But on another level, it's shocking. With everything that's going on in the world right now, all the change taking place in our economy and our politics, with the wars we're on the cusp of fighting right now, Google has decided you should have less information rather than more. And that is totally wrong. It's immoral. What can you do about it? Well, we could whine about it. That's a waste of time. We're not in charge of Google. Or we could find a way around it, a way that you could actually get information that is true, not intentionally deceptive. The way to do that on YouTube, we think, is to subscribe to our channel. Subscribe. Hit the little bell icon to be notified when we upload and share this video. That way you'll have a much higher chance of hearing actual news and information. So we hope that you'll do that.